Hello, everyone. Welcome to Retail ME's virtual roundtable. We're just waiting for more of our attendees to join. And once they join, we will be starting the session shortly. I can see the numbers climbing. Very, very exciting for us to be hosting this webinar session with all of you. Thank you to all the attendees who are here with us. Just waiting for the numbers to climb, which is very exciting for us to see. And once again, welcome to everyone who's here with us for Retail ME's virtual roundtable powered by Oracle. Offering a compelling omni-channel experience used to be the bleeding edge of retail. Now it is a requirement for survival. Huge constraints in supply chain and workforce issues accompanied by a jump in consumer demand for specific products added pressure on retailers. We saw this especially last year when digital ordering and omni-channel fulfillment became the focus of business strategy. But before retailers rush to expand their omni-channel capabilities, they need to step back and consider the underlying drivers of value for their specific business. Moreover, some retailers who did embrace omni-channel selling to meet their customer demands felt profits are elusive. So let's change that then. Welcome to Retail ME's virtual roundtable powered by Oracle. And today we discuss how retailers can ensure omni-channel profitability. We have a very powerful session planned for you to take place over the next 90 minutes or so, starting with a presentation on market forces reshaping retail and distribution by Peter Newham, who is the Senior Director, Insight, Architecture, and Industry Strategy at Oracle. This is going to be followed by a case study on our topic for the day by Ayman Ali Mohammad Al-Sagaf, who is the IT Applications Director at Al-Nadi Medical Company. And then we have Gary Brocklehurst, ERPM Business Development and Strategy Leader at Oracle, delivering a presentation on big moves for retail, resilience, and efficiency. And finally, our panel discussion on facilitating omni-channel profitability with Peter, Ayman, and Philip Smith, Group Head of Digital at Kamal Osman Jamjoom, joining us very soon. One more thing before we start off our presentations. Embracing the UAE's 1 Billion Trees initiative, attendees at this webinar will effectively adopt the tree, connect with the farmer, and track the carbon negative impact of the tree. You will receive a certificate of appreciation for having done your part in promoting sustainability. To know more about the initiative, please let us know, and we will be happy to share all you need to know about the 1 Billion Trees initiative. Right now, again, thank you to all our attendees, to all the panelists who've joined us, and over to you now, Peter.
Thanks very much, Shruti. And thank you, everybody, for joining this morning. We've had a fantastic introduction from Shruti, so I probably won't spend a huge amount of time talking about what we're here to do today. My name's Peter Newham. I'm a Senior Director in Oracle's Customer Architecture and Industry Strategy team. I've spent about 26 years working for Oracle, and the past 20 of those years working with retailers across the Middle East, across Western Europe, Nordics, the UK, and Ireland. I'm based in the UK, but I have spent quite a bit of time in the region. I work with retailers such as Alshaya, Landmark Group, Apparel Group, Red Tag in the region, and outside of the region with retailers like Tesco, Sainsbury's, IKEA, ICA, etc. So if any of you are a little bit like myself, the last 18 months has been very, very interesting. There's an ancient Chinese blessing which goes, may you live in interesting times, and it's certainly been that. However, the elephant in the room is basically the COVID, and I really don't want to spend a huge amount of time talking about COVID. From my perspective, the things that we're seeing in our market today and in the last 18 months, the trends, the things that are emerging, these things have been evident in the retail business for many, many years, since the dawn of the 2000s. But what we've seen in the last 18 months is an unprecedented acceleration and in the pace at which these trends are impacting our business. I think many of you talk, and when we talk to you, you express that you've seen something like 10 years of growth compressed into 18 months, and with a huge amount of that compressed into that first sort of 6 to 9 months where we were all in various states of lockdown. So today is not necessarily about COVID. Obviously, it's what we're living with. But actually, what I wanted to talk about were the trends and the things that we believe, that I believe, are driving retail as we move forward. And look, all of you know the industry, you know your business very, very well. And I know that you keep an eye on the trends and the things that are impacting your particular market. So one of the things I thought I might do here is just talk a little bit about how some of the trends that we're seeing, in my opinion, in my experience, are actually linking together in a value chain and effectively driving the retail business in a specific way. And at the end of the day, my hypothesis, if I wanted to get scientific with you, my hypothesis is that the channel mix, so that the very nature of the revenue streams that from which we get our business, that channel mix has changed permanently, and it's going to continue to be changing. So the volatility and the lack of predictability in the channel mix that we as retailers have is going to be one of the factors that we're living with for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So, going into 2020, I think everybody that I was talking to had a reasonably positive sentiment about revenue growth for retailers globally. And I think in many cases, we were kind of expecting 5, 6% growth in overall revenues. The reality of 2020 and as we get towards the end of 2021, the reality is that we've actually seen a decline in overall revenue of about 1.5–2%. But back to this theme of channel mix, what's effectively happened is that there's been a huge global shift to digital retail. So I think globally, we've seen something like a 46% shift in the growth of digital channels. But in the UAE and in the Gulf, we were typically seeing an average run rate of about 4% of contribution coming from digital channels. It's actually jumped up to about 53%. I know some retailers that I work with have been running at 10, 12, 15%, and those were retailers that moved quickly in terms of adopting digital channels, but the average run rate was around 4%. And what we're going to see until at least 2025 is year-on-year growth of approaching 20%. So we've seen a fundamental change in the way that our businesses work and the sources of the revenue that we need to drive our business. That's had a number of downstream implications. There's been an incredible global shift in terms of the use of payment card transactions. I'm based in the UK. In the last 18 months, we've seen 60% reduction in the amount of free cash moving through the economy. So globally, we've seen about a 45% increase in the use of payment cards. And that's driven an additional unanticipated stress into our finance teams, because effectively they've had to find additional heads to handle the additional workload associated with reconciling all these payment card transactions. So where we were looking for efficiencies in the finance organization, we've actually had to increase team or divert people away from more value-added activities into very mundane revenue reconciliation, payment card reconciliation processes. Now, in many cases, retailers we're working with have gone off and adopted automated ways of handling that additional workload volume. But in many cases, we're seeing organizations globally with, let's say, around $40 billion US turnover, having teams of 50 and 60 people who are actually manually reconciling these payment card transactions. In the middle of all of this, we've seen an incredible shift into direct-to-consumer business. So the number of organizations that are now approaching your end customers with a direct-to-consumer offer, typically associated with a subscription, is up to in excess of 45%. And that's literally taking quite a lot of the business away from you. In the UK, most of my neighbors now have Hewlett Packard deliver printer cartridges to their door rather than going to Amazon or somewhere else to buy these things. Inventory visibility has become an incredible problem. A little bit later today, Philip from Kamal Osman Jamjoon will talk a little bit about this, I believe. But in effect, the lack of visibility in our stores and across our supply chains is causing incredible problems for us. As Shruti said in the introduction, as we went into the lockdown situations at the start of last year, demand shifted, it spiked, it moved into different product assortments. And what we were finding was that retailers that weren't giving accurate visibility as to where their inventory was, when it would be available, was actually causing customers to switch allegiances looking for that roll of toilet paper or that hand sanitizer. And when a customer shifts these days, more than 50% of the time, that shift is a permanent shift. So with all of these changes going on, my hypothesis and what I think we'd like to talk about a bit later in this webinar, my hypothesis is that the shift in channel mix is having a very profound way on the way that our finance departments, the way that our buying and merchandising teams, the way that our supply chain teams need to work together to ensure that they've got an adequate end-to-end visibility of what's going on in the business. And because the channel mix is so volatile, they need to be able, the need to do scenario modeling, the need to be able to go out and analysis of the cost to serve across your various channels becomes absolutely critical going forward. But the store's not dead. I think for the last 5 or 10 years, we've been talking about the death of the store, and it hasn't happened. And in my opinion, and in the opinion of various other people in the industry, it's never going to happen. We are going to see the role of the store change. It was already changing to becoming more of a showcase, an experiential place, a place where you could potentially get instant fulfillment. And as we went into lockdown, we were seeing that retailers that had invested in supply chain infrastructure and inventory visibility were able to be incredibly agile in terms of leveraging the inventory that was sitting in these stores and actually starting to deliver new customer journeys where store inventory was being used to fulfill customer demand, which was an incredibly powerful use of our inventory in stores that otherwise would not have been usable. So that trend and the ability to use the supply chain out to our store and the proximity of our stores to our customers to continue to engage with them and to stay relevant with them is going to continue. So I'm a bit of a fan of dystopian futures, and I guess it wasn't quite as bad as this, but I think the situation as we went into March 2020 or towards the end of March 2020, we were actually fearing the worst. And I think things that we did globally as retailers was we spent a huge amount of time making sure that we could actually fulfill to that last mile. We worried a lot about the perfect delivery, but and things like customers expecting free delivery, even on orders worth less than 200 dirhams or $50 US, 75% of consumers expect free delivery on these shopping baskets. And what's basically happened as a consequence of this is that in smaller countries, in smaller regions, so places like the UK, places like Ireland, the UAE, the cost of last mile delivery has kind of sort of passed us by without us even realizing. In these sorts of countries, the cost of that last mile is actually approaching 27%. So effectively, we've spent a lot of time worrying about that last mile, but it only represents a very small part of the overall landed cost. So, taking this approach of actually bringing in a threshold on free deliveries. And I know, for example, that Landmark Group across the UAE have put in a threshold of 250 dirhams. It's had the anticipated effect which was the number of orders has reduced. And I guess the unintended consequence of the actual average order value increasing by just over 16%. And I'm guilty of this, and I know my colleague Gary is guilty of this as well. If I'm one item or 50 dirham or $20 short of a free shipping threshold, I do end up making an unintended purchase. So the average order value went up, but with the rate of return for some retail segments, and in women's fashion in particular, I work with a number of retailers where they actually see a 70% rate of return. We have this incredibly complex dilemma of having to satisfy to the last mile, it representing a fairly significant portion of our landed costs. I'm doing things to try to claw back the cost of the landed mile delivery, but actually what's happening is I'm increasing my rate of return. And net, as a global average, the cost of delivering to the last mile runs at about $10 US per delivery, and retailers on average are clawing back only $8. So for every delivery we're making, the average retailer is losing $2. So there's a very complex set of dimensions and perspectives for you as retailers to manage and to work across. And these things drive that need for an end-to-end view of our finance, our supply chains, and understanding the impact end-to-end of the volatility of our channel mix. You know, supply chains have been getting increasingly complex. And I would argue, and I think you'd all agree, that supply chains are under an incredible amount of pressure. You know, we have to contend with issues like sustainability, and I'm glad that I'm contributing to the planting of a tree today, but we have to contend with issues like sustainability. We have to contend with human relation issues like exploitation and working conditions. We've had staff shortages, we've had lockdown cost pressures, we've had an incredible shortage of carriers and capacity. And I know that the cost of importing goods into the UAE has increased by more than 10%. The cost of merely renting a container to come from China into the mainland of the European continent has gone up from around 1,800 euros to 24,000 euros. So the costs of our supply chains have grown. We've seen this incredible shift in demand. We've seen panic buying driving demand spikes. We've literally seen a perfect storm running across our supply chains. And you know, I would argue that most of the retailers I've worked with have spent a huge amount of time in the last 18 months worrying about that last mile delivery. Retailers that haven't, you'll be happy to hear, are some of the guests we've invited along today. So Al Nadi and Kamal Osman Jamjoon, they've made investments in supply chain visibility. They've made investments in planning and strategic modeling capabilities. You know, retailers like Sally Beauty in the US, they were one of the organizations that within 3 weeks managed to roll out a buy online, collect from the store curbside customer journey. And that drove that.
Sorry, Pete, we're unable to hear you now. Can you just try again with the signal? We seem to be having a little bit of a technical glitch from Peter's end. I think he's just going to rejoin, but there's so many insights he's just given us in the presentation so far. Some things that have actually struck out to me so far would be the 53% lift in digital revenues just from this region, while global is 46%, which alludes to the fact that there's more of an adoption from this region compared to the rest of the world. Another very interesting thing that he mentioned was, of course, for every delivery, the retailer is losing about $2, which is something that I wasn't aware of, which is why having this conversation on omni-channel profitability and how retailers can ensure it in the day and age of a dystopian future, like Pete just mentioned, is extremely important. We're just going to wait for Pete to come back, but I think in the meantime, if Ayman would like to continue with his presentation, and then we can bring Pete back on. So Ayman, if I can see you still here with us. So I know you have a very exciting case study ready for us. So we're all ears and all eyes for it.
Right. Thank you, Shruti. So let me just explain my slides. All right, can you see my slides? Hello?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Shruti. So just a quick introduction. My name is Ayman Al-Sagdaf. I am the IT Applications Director at Nahdi Medical Company. I have been working in the retail industry for almost 18 years. And my experience is mostly in omni-channel, CRMs, and loyalty programs. So today I'm gonna walk you through this presentation where I would like to talk first about Nahdi Medical Company. I'll just give you a brief about the organization. Then I will talk about the omni-channel and supply chain infrastructure that we have, and the applications footprint that helps us in this omni-channel journey. And then I will present a case study of the challenges that we faced during the pandemic and how this footprint and infrastructure help us cruise through this difficult time with some insights and lessons learned. Then I will close with a couple of slides about how we leverage also the finance capabilities using APM. So a quick introduction about Nahdi Medical Company. Nahdi Medical Company started 30 years ago with 2 stores in 1986 in Jeddah. And now we have grown into 1,100 stores. So it was a very remarkable journey. We are spread in more than 100 cities in Saudi Arabia. And we are always claiming that we are 5 minutes away from 95% of the Saudi population. So this is, of course, before the digital journey started, but now we are saying we are 5 clicks away from the whole of population of Saudi Arabia. Recently, we expanded our business also to start primary care centers, polyclinics, and 16 express care clinics, which is the 1-minute concept that you can see in CVS and Walgreens. And our product categories are ranging from prescriptions, beauty, baby and mom, and everyday essentials. Our vision is to be the most loved and trusted health well-being partner for all our guests. Our mission is to exceed all guest expectations by providing superior personalized life care experiences every day, everywhere. And we exist to add beats to our guests' lives every day. So this is our value and mission and vision, just for your information. And this is our logo, which represents a heart in the center of the logo, which is the community that we protect and we care about. And around the heart, you can see a shield of different colors, which represents the different services and products that we provide to our guests. So let me talk a little bit about our value chain architecture, since we are talking about omni-channel and how we can leverage the infrastructure to ensure omni-channel profitability. So Saudi Arabia is, of course, a very large country, over 30 million populations. We have 1,140 stores in 100 cities, from north to south, east to west. We have 6 main distribution centers. in the main cities, and we have also one distribution center in UAE, which we opened recently. We have over 15,000 SKUs, 160 plus van trucks, which move products across all these cities. And we have the shipment frequency from once a week to a couple of times a week. And recently, with our omni-channel journey, we started to have what we call as the hub stores, or what is known in the omni-channel world as dark stores, where we use our stores as fulfillment centers to be to provide fast last mile delivery service. So we have hub stores spread across the whole kingdom. Talking about our omni-channel infrastructure, or omni-channel footprint, we have a website, which is Nahdi Online, which you can visit anytime. We are doing click and collect and home delivery across the kingdom. Our loyalty program, named Nuhadik, is one of the biggest programs in the Middle East, with more than 5 million members. We have, of course, a guest care center, a call center. We launch mobile applications. We use digital assistant chatbots. And of course, since we are a healthcare provider, we are a pharmacy chain, we also provide e-prescriptions online. And recently, starting from last year, we started the teleconsultation and home healthcare. So this is the transition that we have now, from omni-channel to what we call as omni-health. We like this term because it represents our DNA of healthcare and pharmacy business. Okay, so let me just give you an idea about the footprint that we have, the technology footprint. And then I will go to this case study and how we utilize this footprint to manage the difficult times we had during the pandemic. So we have a big footprint ranging from Oracle products, like 70% of the products that we have are Oracle products, and with, of course, other products from other vendors. So at the bottom of the screen here, you can see the foundation, the technology platform, where we have the database, the middleware. It's all Fusion middleware, Oracle Exadata, Oracle ODI. And the middle layer here, you can see the business applications layer, starting from the ERP, where we have Oracle Fusion, the core finance, the healthcare, the HCM, and the enterprise performance planning. The retail operations, we of course, we use Oracle retail products, retail merchandising systems, store inventory management, and X-Store. In the supply chain, we use Oracle Cloud products. We use Oracle WMS Cloud, and we use also Oracle Transportation Cloud system. On the planning side, we are using Oracle Retail Merchandising and Retail Demand Forecasting and Category Management. When it comes to the customer interaction and the omni-channel layer, we have the e-commerce platform, which is a non-Oracle product. It's Magento, to be specific. And of course, we have these Oracle products ranging from the Oracle Retail Customer Engagement, which handles our loyalty program and our CRM. We have the Oracle CX Service Cloud, which handles our service management activities. And we have the Oracle Live Experience, which is a product used to have video consultations or video conferencing. So how do we use this footprint to continue and to advance our digital transformation? This is where I would like to start with the case study. And I think a very good example of how your systems could be helping you and to be resilient is to talk about the pandemic era. And I think Pete before me, he mentioned, I like what he said, that 10 years of growth is compressed in 10 months. So this is the reality now. And let me just list the challenges that comes with the pandemic, And we see how we, as Nahdi, managed to address them and to advance our strategic objectives. So of course, you have the supply chain challenges, the fluctuating demand, the remote support, the COVID new reality. Of course, we have the lockdowns and the huge shift to the online channel. The scalability issues. We have seen a jump from 2,000 orders a day to 25,000 orders during the lockdown. So that was a huge pressure on our supply chain and our operations. Of course, there was a huge traffic to our call centers due to the inquiries about the orders and the status of the orders. With the social distancing mandates, of course, and the lockdowns, the footfall to our pharmacies declined, and also to our healthcare centers. Of course, everyone was worried about COVID infection, so we had to go paperless in so many areas. And with the travel restrictions, and of course, everyone is sitting at home, the remote working norms imposed a challenge on coordinating between a large number of people. So let me just take these one by one and explain how we managed to address these issues. So talking about the supply chain, we have a very strong foundation where we use Oracle products, the warehouse management system, the transportation management system, and the Oracle retail suite, which helped us to manage so many issues or challenges during the pandemic. So I just give a couple of examples. The focus or the demand on the COVID items. During the lockdowns and during the first days of the COVID, there was a huge demand on sanitizers, on masks, on all the COVID items, and this required a flexible and agile system to direct the supply chain to procure and to deliver these items in the fastest way possible. So just a small example of this is how we tuned the warehouse management system, the picking strategies to give priority to these COVID items so that we can ship it to our pharmacies and to make it available for our guests. On the planning side as well, we tuned our planning system to ship the orders to our hub stores, because the shift from the brick and mortar to the online channel was the case there. So we had to fulfill and to replenish our hub stores in priority before the other stores. So that was also done using Oracle Retail Demand Forecasting and Oracle Allocation modules. And of course, we had to have a business continuity plan where some warehouses might be closed due to infections. So having a cloud solution like Oracle WMS Cloud helped us to easily shift the demand and the orders from one warehouse to the other warehouse. At the same time, we had plans to deploy new warehouses, and due to the travel restrictions and the remote support norms, it was quite difficult to manage that. However, since we are using a cloud solution without the need to doing a lot of work on the infrastructure, we managed to launch a new DC in the south region of Saudi, and it was really a great success story and case study that was published all over the media. So we managed during the pandemic to launch a new warehouse with voice picking capabilities, and it was a great example of the agile implementations and the utilization of cloud solutions. Coming to other challenges like the huge shift to the online channel and the jump from 2,000 orders to 25,000 orders. We managed this by leveraging our network. So we increased our hub stores, our fulfillment stores, from 30 to 100 in a matter of days to accommodate the huge shift to the online orders. We extended our last mile delivery team from 100 captains or 100 drivers to 2,000 drivers, utilizing third-party logistic companies and our own staff. In many cases, we had to equip our own, let's say, assistants in the pharmacies to deliver orders. And we accelerated the launch of the last mile delivery app, which helped us to orchestrate and to manage the huge number of orders and to ensure the delivery of these orders to our guests. This actually was enabled by having a very strong infrastructure of Oracle databases and middlewares, which helped us to scale up easily. Coming to another type of challenge, which is the huge traffic of calls to our call center. At that time, we had only 40 agents, and we had to increase the number of agents from 40 to 200 in 1 week time. And using Oracle Service Cloud, being a cloud solution, a SaaS solution, we were able to quickly equip all those users at their home to take calls and to respond to our customers. We had also what we call as healthcare corners, where our guests come to the pharmacies. They sit with the clinical pharmacist and they take recommendations and advices on their diabetic journey and their weight management. And we could not do that at that time during of course, the pandemic. Even now, it's not that easy. So we utilized the teleconsultation and the video consultation solutions. One of them was the Oracle Live Experience Cloud, which helped us to have this kind of sessions between the patients or between the guests and the pharmacist using, of course, the online consultation platform. The last one action that we did is we, of course, leveraged chatbots and digital assistants so that we can take as much as possible of these inquiries and deflect the calls from the call center. Last but not least, on the case study and the managing the pandemic, of course, the infection precautions and going paperless was something very important for people at that time. So we introduced new user journeys or customer journeys, like the curbside pickups, which I think Pete also mentioned in his presentation. So that was really very well received by our customers. We introduced a scan and go feature in our application. So customers can come and take their products, scan them, pay, and leave the pharmacy without any interaction with the store team. And of course, we accelerated going green on the different functions by automating processes using RPA and business process management. Of course, we use products like Oracle Process Cloud and UiPath. On the financial side, one of the most important activities any company should do is, of course, the monthly closing and reconciliation and the timely closing. And with the pandemic and with everyone sitting at home and with the need to coordinate between like 30 to 40 people, it was quite difficult to do that using Excel sheets and emails. And we were lucky actually to implement a product from Oracle, which is the Enterprise Performance Management System, which facilitates the orchestration of all the closing activities by having the activities tracked in the system with the SLAs, with the compliance. So if there are any discrepancies in any accounts, the account owner will be informed, and he will have to take actions during the timelines specified for the closing. So this actually helped us do the monthly closing and reconciliation on a timely basis during the pandemic and post the pandemic. The last but not least, of course, going forward to optimize this further and as Pete mentioned, like how we can optimize and do the best kind of planning for the channel mix. We are implementing Oracle Enterprise Performance Management System, where we will utilize the workforce planning, which enables us to budget for the future headcounts and personal expenses, which helps us also to evaluate the ROI of the different projects and bridge the gap between project planning systems and the financial planning process. And it will help us also assess the impact on the impact of the organizational projects and initiatives and the resources used with them. And of course, we are very interested to and excited to use the strategic modeling, which will help us do what-if scenarios. For example, if we'd like to see the profitability of the brick and mortar versus the online channels, this specific module can help us on this area. With this, I am concluding the presentation, and I am handing this over to Gary to share. I think he will be talking also about enterprise process planning. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayman. You've made my job actually very, very easy. If you could just stop sharing the screen, and then I can just reshare my screen as well. That would be great. Thank you very much. So let me just very quickly share my screen. Okay. Thank you, Ayman. That was great. Like I say, it's made my job very, very easy. So good morning, everybody. I guess it's afternoon now for morning in Saudi. My name is Gary Brocklehurst. I live in Dubai and I work as ERP strategy leader for Oracle. I mean, like many of you, I'm still working from home, but wherever you are today, I hope you're keeping safe and you're keeping well. Okay, at the beginning of the global lockdown in 2020, the chief investment officer at Morgan Stanley said the global shutdown would allow us to understand and identify the companies which had a truly resilient and recurring revenue model. In other words, it would be the biggest business continuity test the world had ever seen. However, amongst all the uncertainty during the last 18 months, one thing became very certain very quickly. And that was the importance of a digital backbone to support agility and resilience in finance operations and supply chain. Fast forward to the present day, and when organizations like yours talk to application software providers like Oracle, investment in innovation has to result in a big move forward in agility and in resilience. So retailers like yourselves are making big moves to get out in front of the competition. And this is accelerating as we start to see green shoots of recovery. I could talk about several big moves we are working on with our retail customers around the world. And you'll hear from Nadia, you've just heard from Nadia now, and you'll hear from Nadia and KOJ later on about the big moves they're progressing. However, for today, I've picked 4 big moves that retailers could make to pivot forward to profitable growth. So I want to talk about business model innovation, and that includes new channels to market, new offerings that put the customer at the heart of the business, automated close and the impact of getting information into the hands of the decision makers faster, with more accuracy and more insight. And it's obvious that any retailer that has the customer at the heart of its business would want every delivery to be perfect. But as we've heard already, it needs to be profitable. And that means knowing everything about that delivery and every delivery that you make. And finally, I'll briefly touch on a big move that could be the most important move any organization makes in the next few years, and that's to build a risk intelligent culture. So let's get started. Okay, so why is it important to embrace new business model innovation? So firstly, it will help you to create new revenue streams, whether it be new sales channels, perhaps a new service-based offering, or entering into new markets. So this will add resilience to the business as well as growth. When you design these new business models, it gives you the opportunity to build in resilience and agility by rethinking, automating, and optimizing your business operating model. And thirdly, it lets you stand back and ask the question, is this business model customer-centric? Does it represent our values? And is it profitable? And can I get it to the market quick enough for it to make a difference? And for this, we need information and intelligent tools to help us to be successful. So let's look at some of the important use cases that our customers are deploying with Oracle's cloud applications. So I believe that if you can't plan something, then you can't execute it. So planning tools with scenario modeling are critical to, A, identify the right opportunities, and two, to understand the outcomes in terms of things like cash flow, headcount, balance sheet, overall P&L, for a range of possibilities and scenarios. Okay. Next is supporting new subscription models. And I think Pete may have alluded to this around, maybe a subscription model that included a year of delivery charges, for instance. So, new subscription modules align with how your customers want to buy and consume products from you. That leads to the need to automatically account and recognize recurring revenue streams in accordance with international accounting standards. And finally, whereas in the past we might introduce new business models infrequently, and we could take our time, in the new world, we're moving at pace and running many different initiatives all at the same time. So it's important to treat every new initiative as a project and use modern project management tools to track costs and optimize resources. Okay, so let's take a look at why accelerating the automated close is important. Why do we need to do this? And actually, Eamon kind of did a really good job of stating this for me. So even before the pandemic, it was the #1 priority of our customers. Many had recognized the benefits of continuous close. So accounting can get reconciled numbers to FP&A in just 1 or 2 days. And FP&A can use modern performance management tools to crunch their cycle times and get accurate, easy to understand information into the hands of decision makers fast. So automation is the key. And using emerging technology like machine learning and AI means less human involvement in time-consuming manual activities, which leads to a step change in speed, obviously, accuracy, and resilience, particularly as the move to remote working is here to stay. So, the use cases for automated close are clear. I just spoke about emerging tech and automation. So account reconciliation, which Eamon mentioned, is one area where manual effort can be eliminated, but it also flows into consolidation and narrative reporting, where we can use natural language processing to automatically add narrative to our management reporting. When we talk about predictive analytics, we're really talking about using data science to auto forecast, look for correlations in our data across different data streams, data sets, help us with root cause analysis, basically helping us to spend more time taking action. And lastly, if we are driving towards an accelerated close, then we shouldn't really have one system for accountants and another set of systems for FP&A. One unified platform gives our customers a 360-degree view across all lines of business and the ability to quickly see the business impact across things like workforce, cash flow, liabilities, balance sheet, which is really important. Okay, so, Oracle ourselves are well on the way to achieve a one-day close, and we're using our cloud applications to drive automation in a relentless way. So we've freed up resource in the finance function so they can spend more time partnering with the business and driving growth and cost-saving initiatives. It's been so successful that our finance leaders are now have time to meet customers and actually share their experience of building a new agile finance operating model. So if this is of interest to anybody in the audience, we can have one of our finance leaders talk to you about their experience of digital transformation. So let's move on to perfect delivery. So nobody on this call would disagree that providing a superb customer experience leads to higher profits and loyalty. Yeah. Nowhere is that more visible really than the delivery process, right at the sharp end. However, as we've talked about today, the economics have to add up. That's why it's important to be able to account for all the costs of capturing and fulfilling an order. And that needs to be easily accessible so you can monitor delivery performance and cost in real time if necessary. There will be orders in jeopardy, of course, and it's important to quickly replan and adapt to disruption so you can exceed customer expectations. This is where integrated digital supply chains are critical, so you can manage demand in much shorter time horizons, optimize costs and speed, and identify issues quickly to take action. So let's take a look at the value chain. So omnichannel order orchestration allows a command center for all your orders. Every order is a promise to the customer. Order capture, inventory, and fulfillment instructions all in one place. Next is the warehouse and transportation management to pick and ship to the DC or the fulfillment center, store inventory, customer home, click and collect location. So let's imagine if all of these critical supply chain functions were unified into one solution. You would have 100% real-time visibility of the order status, inventory and associated costs right across the fulfillment process. And that's exactly what customers are deploying Oracle Logistic Clouds are able to achieve. If we then include global trade compliance into the mix, then as a retailer, I have full control and visibility. And our final big move for today is building a risk intelligent culture. So as we automate more, collaborate more, as we move business at speed and respond to market conditions and customer expectations, we can no longer rely on manual controls. We need continuous monitoring and automation of controls. So as we recognize that transforming our organization means bringing systems, processes, and people together, then we should take the opportunity to centralize security and audit. That will mean more time spent on strategic risk management, building a risk intelligent culture that prevents threats to the business, but allows teams to understand the risks of introducing new ideas and manage the risk accordingly. So when you design new business applications, make sure that you build in. So make sure that you build in controls and access so that when you design the new business applications, you think about compliance, think about segregation of duties, and make sure they're all automated and embedded. A true digital transformation should allow you to continuously monitor user access, process workflows, data changes, and detect any anomalous and fraudulent transactions. So, that's all I have time for today. Thank you very much for your attention. Now it's time to make your big move. And I hope the presentation from Nadi and the panel discussion that follows will inspire you to take action. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Gary, for that very, very insightful presentation. And of course, Ayman as well for joining us here for all of those insights. Pete's presentation did mention a lot of challenges, including inventory visibility and transparency. And then we've also spoken about the last mile in a dystopian future, like Pete likes to mention. Alnadi, Ayman, you told us about using stores as fulfillment and the hub stores, which is very interesting with Scan and Go and telehealth and everything you've introduced just in the course of the last year. And of course, Gary, very insightful presentation about the importance of accelerated close. And I'm very excited to see that you're very close to the one-day financial close as well. Really looking forward to what you have planned here. With that, I am going to bring in Pete once again for our presentation and the moderated panel discussion that we have right now. So Pete is going to be joined by Philip Smith, the Group Head of Digital at Kamal Osman Jamjoom, Ayman Ali, who is again the IT Applications Director at Nadi Medical Company. And the session, like you know, is going to be moderated by Peter Newham, Senior Director, Insight Architecture and Industry Strategy at Oracle. Let me remind all the attendees to send in the questions in the little Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen, because we will be taking those questions at the end of the session. The panel discussion on ensuring omnichannel profitability is just about to begin now. Over to you, Pete.
Thank you very much. Talk about business resilience. We seem to have lost our internet connection in the house. At Sod's Law, it happens at the perfect time. But yeah, again, thank you very much for Gary, and thank you very much, Ayman, for the conversation, the case study you walked us through. I guess it probably makes sense to pass over to Philip briefly for the first question. I guess, Philip, you know, it's been a very busy year for KOJ. At the start of lockdown, with all of your stores closed, I know that you made a very significant decision to embark on a digital transformation. Can you talk us through a little bit about what's been going on inside KOJ, the things you've accomplished, and why and how you set out to do all of this?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Philip. I'm the Group Digital Director for KOJ. I've been with KOJ now nearly about 3 years. Our digital transformation journey, I suppose the kickoff and the real plan for that started early 2019, so just over a year before the pandemic. And one of our main pillars, or one of our first pillars during that transformation journey, was e-commerce. So during 2019, we focused quite a lot on building out our websites and e-commerce applications. And then we came around to kind of like 2020. And when we hit March of 2020, we you know, things exploded because our stores were closed, as you mentioned. So a lot of people were shifting to e-commerce. So we saw a huge spike in e-commerce. You know, we saw sales jump like 1,500%. Our e-commerce contribution went from single digit to double digit growth, double digit contribution within a matter of days or weeks. And because we've been working on our, let's say, front end applications for e-commerce, the websites were handling the scalability, but what we kind of found was downstream and our operational services and downstream systems were struggling somewhat. So, you know, to all of a sudden, a bit like Ayman said, to try and accommodate such a growth in orders, it has a lot of impacts on things like order processing, picking and packing, customer service, last mile logistics, and even our systems like OMS and WMS and these type of things. So, you know, we'd already planned to apply new applications as part of our digital transformation downstream and you know, at the back of house, let's say. But what the pandemic done was kind of confirmed that, you know, this was a good plan because we hit the pandemic and all of a sudden we needed to accelerate some of the projects. Now, what a lot of businesses were doing during that time was thinking, how do I cut projects, cut costs, stop plans that we already had in place? But quite frankly, at KOJ, what we were doing was saying, look, we need to keep building, we need to keep pushing our digital transformation roadmap. to make sure that, when we come out of the other side of this pandemic, or when the stores reopen, that we're kind of like bigger, stronger than we were before, and our businesses are more resilient, and they can manage such spikes in orders on certain channels, or whether it be managing stock from channels that are actually not selling. So we during 2020 we carried on this journey, and we were implementing new things pretty much every single week or every month. One of the most significant, I suppose, when it comes from omnichannel was the implementation of Oracle Order Broker. Couple of months after the first spike of the pandemic, we were rolling out click and collect across like 500 retail stores. We were rolling out Oracle X Store across over 600 of our stores, and this was like mid 2020, sort of Q2, Q3. So we were dealing with the pandemic, but at the same time we were kind of building a new backbone to our operations. So it was challenging, but the fact that our board, our group CEO, our chairman kind of took the decision to keep investing and keep pushing our digital transformation roadmap to make sure we come out kind of stronger at the other end, has proven to be the right decision now, because we've come out the other end sort of bigger and stronger.
Yeah. Oh, thanks very much, Philip. Yeah, it's been fantastic, and as you've come out of lockdown and as the economy have opened, KJ's actually expanded, hasn't it? I mean, you've taken over the Body Shop franchise for the UAE. You've moved into new lines of business. So I guess there's a great example of the agility that you can get out of making those strategic investments.
Yeah, definitely. We during 2020 we opened Lego. We acquired the Lego franchise in Saudi Arabia, and we opened the very first Lego store in Saudi Arabia, and on the same day, within 24 hours, we'd launched Lego online in Saudi Arabia. So it was like a pure kind of omni-channel launch in that respect. But then, I suppose all the systems that we've put in place, because I know I'm talking about omni-channel, but we've put in place things like Oracle Fusion, and we've put our finance, HR, and procurement into the cloud. All these kind of other activities that were going on. When we've come round to acquire a new business like TBS UAE, what it meant is we could kind of absorb that new business into our group quite easily and quickly. We acquired about 45 stores in UAE, and we actually brought all of the systems and applications onto KOJ tech stack within about 2 weeks, which is pretty unheard of. So the fact that we're kind of more cloud based now makes these acquisitions easier. And a few weeks ago we just acquired the master franchisee for Subway. It's our first kind of foray into food and beverage. We've got about 140 Subway stores to accommodate across the UAE. So again, it's as we bring Subway a completely new category to us, a completely new business, but at the same time we're working now on absorbing that business into the KOJ tech stack, and being more cloud based now makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much. So just a quick reminder to everyone in attendance, if you do have questions for the panel, please feel free to post them in the Q&A window. Well, thanks very much, Philip. I mean, Ayman, again, thank you so much for the words and the content you shared with us just recently. I guess when we see Al Nadi Medical talking across many different platforms, and whenever the conversation sort of moves over to omni-channel, Al Nadi and Ayman, you specifically, place a huge amount of emphasis on your supply chain and logistics capability. Could you sort of explain a bit of the background behind this emphasis, and more specifically some of the things you've done? I know you've done a lot with automated warehousing, but perhaps you could talk a little bit about the broader background behind some of those decisions.
Yes, definitely. So Our supply chain is, of course, the backbone of all the omnichannel activities that we have. And our journey with the supply chain transformation started like 6 years ago. And we were always trying to be agile by implementing cloud-based solutions so that we can roll out warehouses in a fast manner. We ensure that we have the planning tools to help us with the forecasting of the demand and the sales so that we can anticipate any kind of spikes in orders or demand from the end guests. We work together with the business team, with our partners to establish a very strong foundation, putting in mind that at the end, we'd like to ensure to deliver the products on the right time with the right quality, and taking into account, of course, the omni-channel context. We promise our customers to deliver within 2 hours. So this is a very competitive, I would say, advantage that we claim to have, that we leverage our network of stores and hub stores to deliver to anyone in Saudi Arabia within 2 hours. And this is really, I think, a big barrier for entry for competitors. So we strive to keep this barrier of entry, and by ensuring the optimization of our delivery processes, last mile delivery operations, and we always try our best to optimize and to enhance our supply chain ecosystem by implementing the latest trends. So as you mentioned, we have recently launched our automated warehouse, which gives us, I would say, a very agile and quick operations to deliver to our stores and then to our end customers. We are also implementing assortment planning and category management. So we are embarking into a very promising journey with the supply chain solutions. So this is what we are doing now on the supply chain context.
Oh, fantastic. And when we started talking, and before I lost my internet connection, we talked about the explosion in payment card transactions. How's the Al Nadi finance team been handling that additional workload?
Yeah, in the beginning, we really suffered because with the pandemic and everyone going to use payment cards rather than cash, the effort to reconcile with the different banks, with the different payment providers was huge. So what we did actually is we automated so many of these processes by using RPA, robotic process automations. We use also Oracle products like PCS, Process Cloud Surface, and Fusion middleware to automate a lot of these reconciliations. To ensure, of course, the payments, the reconciliation is happening on time, and the refunds also to our guests is happening on time if needed. So I would say we have managed it quite very well using these automation tools. Awesome.
No, that makes a big difference, doesn't it? And I guess, Philip, a quick question for you. And it's fantastic to have you here with your sort of Chief Digital Officer hat on. Whenever we talk about omnichannel, a lot of retailers tend to talk about digital experience, but KOC typically tends to broaden that conversation to include the in-store experience. And I know earlier you mentioned the agility that being able to leverage in-store inventory gave you. Could you perhaps talk a little bit about the things you've done in terms of in-store experience and how it connects into that overall channel mix and the digital engagement that you're having with your customers?
Okay. Yeah. So the past 18 months, as I explained, we've kind of implemented a lot, which during 2020 we were thinking more about, process and efficiency and all those other things to make the business more resilient. But what we have implemented is giving us opportunities to offer new experiences for the customer as well. So Order Broker that we put in place last year, an X-Store in store, actually enabled us to, launch click and collect across our store network. But at the same time, it's also allowed us to make sure that we can fulfill the customer's need when they come into store. So even if it's not e-commerce related, if they come into store and a particular item's out of stock, the store staff can find that quite quickly and easily and have it shipped to the customer or shipped to the store. So having that kind of fluid global stock view for the brand is it doesn't only make processes easier for merchandising and planning or the back of house teams, it actually enables us to give new experiences to the customer. Currently we're fulfilling click and collect from our warehouse to the stores, but what we're just rolling out now over the next couple of months is actually the physical fulfillment from store by the store teams. So Order Broker's given us that flexibility. I think as well, we're looking at new business opportunities off the back of it as well, by having this kind of new system flexibility and this new easier management, because we've just onboarded 2 wholesalers and distributors who are going to use our early learning center websites as a marketplace. So we're using Oracle Order Broker as a marketplace interface for third parties to be able to sell their products on our web platforms. So we've just onboarded, a couple of distributors and wholesalers now. We're going to be adding more and more over the next 12 months. So it's given us kind of new revenue streams as well and business opportunities, because if we can, expand our product portfolio and add thousands of more products, then obviously it's helping in that respect. So yeah, I think, our goal has always been, omni-channel, to be like the leading omni-channel retailer in the GCC and not to get too obsessed with just the digital elements. It's kind of, okay, how can you make sure that the customer can, buy any product anywhere they need to, and how do we get that to the customer quickly? And having that kind of flexibility within our systems really helps us to achieve that.
And Philip, I guess speaking to some of your colleagues, sort of as you embarked on this digital transformation, I seem to recall that the lockdown and sort of the move to omnichannel and e-commerce, perhaps KOJ was a little bit slower to start that off, historically speaking. And I recall a number of conversations where you had to very quickly pivot towards leveraging marketplaces to help you clear some of that inventory in the very early days. What sort of impact did that have on the finance team? Because I imagine that moving from direct to consumer or business to consumer, and then rapidly having to start interacting with a marketplace or a series of marketplaces actually changes you into a wholesaler as well, doesn't it? So how did that transformation help you with providing the agility to support wholesale as a new business model?
Yeah, I think the wholesalers bring another dynamic. E-commerce brings another dynamic, because all of a sudden you've got all these payments from payment gateways that need reconciling. So yeah, from a finance point of view, that's why it's been really important that the transformation incorporated departments like finance and HR and procurement to make sure that all of these new, great, wild, wonderful things that we're doing on the front end for the customer can actually be managed and reconciled, by our finance teams. We've really reduced down how long it takes us to reconcile the previous month. We'd love to get down to 1 day, what you were talking about before. We're not quite there yet, but by having that ability, it does allow teams like finance to concentrate on other things, like you say, maybe spend more time with the business, or maybe work on other things. So yeah, it's kind of, I suppose the last 18 months we've really transformed almost every possible component of our group you can think of. And now it's, you know, making sure that all of that works holistically together and that we can, get the return on investment out of that.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Phil. I guess there's a question from the attendees. I thought I might pose it now rather than save it to the end. I guess, the question is, if you are a new retail brand, what sort of scale do you think you need to be at before you start embarking on an omni-channel journey? What are your thoughts on that, Philip?
I don't think it's ever too early. I remember back in the UK in the 2000s, I was head of e-commerce for a company, and it was a pure play company. It didn't have any bricks and mortar, but I remember back then we launched like one concept store, onto the high street, and we purposely put. It was around the time when iPads had just been launched. We were incorporated, back in about 2009, I think, and we were incorporating things like iPads into the concept store and this type of thing. And we were a pure play retailer, we weren't omni-channel by any stretch of the imagination, but we were kind of testing these new services in a concept store to see how, if we brought our online proposition to the high street, how would that work and how would it be different? So I don't think you don't need to be a huge retail group or anything to look at omni-channel. Even if I think in some respects it's actually easier if you're kind of like a business with one store, because all you need to worry about is how do you manage the stock between e-com and one store rather than e-com and 700 stores or something. So I don't think people should ever wait to embark on an omni-channel journey, no matter how big or small they are. I think the earlier you can start testing new omni-channel capabilities, earlier the better. I think what you do need to think about if you are doing it on a small scale is how will that scale later on though. Mm-hmm. Obviously a lot of the systems we put in place are for scalability, a bit like what we mentioned earlier about moving a lot of what we do onto Oracle Cloud and things, allows us to acquire new businesses or scale existing businesses. So don't fall in the trap of just building for one or two stores, but still test and learn, and then make sure that when you are willing to scale, that you can do it in a scalable way, and it's not going to impact you later on.
Perfect. Thanks very much. I mean, Ayman, do you have a perspective on that? The sort of the point at which you should embark on an omni-channel journey?
I think from the beginning, it's something that is the reality now. So you can't just open a brick and mortar store and don't think about the online channel. It's, the penetration of online and the smart devices is something that we cannot ignore. So I think early in the process, as Philip said, that's my take on this. I think that this should be from the beginning of the let's say launch of the store itself.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, perfect. And I guess one of the things that I know Al-Nadi did was that you implemented a transportation management solution when you first started with that foray into omnichannel. How do you think that that the transportation management system linked in with your warehouse capability and then back end into finance? How do you think the transportation and logistics capability are related to that omnichannel piece?
Yeah, actually we have a transportation management system to deliver or to manage the delivery of our goods from the warehouses to our stores and from DCs to DCs. And we have another system for the last mile delivery operations. So talking about the transportation management system, it helped us to optimize the deliveries to our stores, to optimize the truckload, to find the fastest routes to our stores. So it has some kind of machine learning and predictive planning to find the best route from the DC and the sequence of fulfillment centers and stores that it should go to. It gives us a good visibility over the operations. So we have GPS in every truck, and we can see that in a dashboard, so the team can see the trucks all over the kingdom, and also with temperature control as well. So the transportation management system I mentioned earlier is the one that is used between our DCs and our stores, and it helped us really optimize our supply chain process in terms of delivering the goods to the stores or from DCs to DCs. The other solution we have is the last mile delivery, which is the one we use to deliver from the stores to the end customers. And that one also was a critical actually component in our transformation, because it helped us to scale up the last mile delivery operations and to monitor the third-party logistic companies that we work with. It helped us also to get the feedback from our customers via, surveys after the delivery is completed, just like what you see when you use Uber or Careem. So it was really, I would say, a very important piece in our supply chain components and ecosystem.
Okay. And your recent, recently, I know that Al Nadi Medical opened 2 new warehouses, which to be honest, seemed to be very, very large. I think they were both in the area of 50,000 square meters, weren't they? Are you using those warehouses to fulfill to store as well as fulfilling to the end consumers, or are you? I mean, how does that fit into the whole delivery mix?
Yes, correct. Actually, we started our e-commerce and omni-channel journey with the focus on fulfilling from the hub stores, because that will allow us to leverage our network of, as I mentioned earlier, we are distributed in 100 cities. So we are 5 minutes away from every customer in Saudi Arabia. So our focus was to leverage this network. However, recently we started to use our DC to deliver products that do not exist in our pharmacies or in our stores.
So endless aisle kind of notion.
Yes, yeah, exactly, endless aisle. And if you go to our website, the website itself will pick the source of the products based on the customer selection, and it will split the shipments to the hub stores and to the DC as well. So yes, we started using our DCs to deliver to complete the endless aisle, and this is something we are expanding in the coming period.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I think Gary's closing call to action around being bold, I think is very clear to all of us that Al Nadi and KOJ have definitely invested. That they've definitely been bold. You've made some very strategic decisions in a very tough business climate, and I think it's been amazing to see how well those investments have landed for both organizations. And Philip, one more question for you, and then I think we probably need to pass over to some of the questions that have been coming in through the Q&A. And I guess, Philip, with the KOJ acquisition of the Subway master franchise, how are you planning to leverage digital into food and beverage? Are you planning to combine sort of the food plus the rest of the brand offerings that the KOJ has, or do you not think that's relevant?
It's early days. We're still, let's say, we literally done the acquisition a couple of weeks ago, so we're still doing a lot of planning right now. I think how Subway works with our other brands isn't really in discussion right now, because it's a bit of it's a totally different beast, let's say. But what we are working on right now is how does Subway fit into our existing group ecosystem, not just from a tech stack point of view, but also from a group shared service point of view. It is food and beverage. It is our first food and beverage brand, but there are some affinities between you know, fashion retail and F&B. You know, there's certain things you would do for a fashion retailer the same that you would do for F&B. So we're trying to figure out what elements have some kind of affinity and what don't. I think, sorry, I can't share too much on this at the moment because it's so fresh, but the plans are still very much in motion. So I think, yeah, I could probably share a bit more on Subway in the coming months as we sort of confirm exactly what we're going to be doing.
Awesome. So I've got one more question that I'll actually pose to both yourself, Ayman, and Philip, and this is a question that's come in from the panel or from the attendees. So I guess, you know, do you think that having, and this is, as I said, sorry, it's for Philip and for Ayman, do you think that having the online capabilities, you know, the digital capabilities you have today, have they actually driven footfall into store to drive things like click and collect? And I guess when the customer is in the store at the end of a click and collect journey, how likely are they to buy one more item? I'd be interested to see how it varies for both Al Nadi and for KOJ.
For KOJ, we've done a couple of things because, you know, measuring how the traffic online sort of transpires into traffic in store can be difficult. Click and collect's easy because obviously, you know, they are actually going to go to the store and collect that item. So with click and collect, it's more about, okay, how do you upsell to the customer when they are in store? You know, what's your strategy in store with the frontline team to you know, upsell to the customer when they do come to store? I think in terms of, you know, looking at the KPIs and measuring you know, how many people go to store, we look at our hybrid customer. One of the other projects actually we worked on last year was deploying a data lake and our 360 view of the customer. So what we do look at now is how that hybrid customer is growing. So basically we're linking transactions in store when people transact in store, and obviously we've got the data online. So we're linking more and more of them those transactions, and what we're actually doing is setting KPIs for our store staff to link transactions. So what that means is that we can link more online customers to the offline. Now, if we use hybrid as a you know, measure, then what it means is we've got a whole new segment of customers there as well. So we've not just got the e-com customer, we've not just got the store customer, we've got the hybrid customer, and we actually look at the frequency of purchase, the lifetime value, the ATV and everything of that hybrid customer. And every time we look at that hybrid customer, their KPIs are higher than just e-com or just store. So their lifetime value overall is a lot more valuable. So it's really important for us to link those transactions in store and then measure the KPIs after.
So effectively, a customer that shops with you across multiple channels has a higher average lifetime value for KOJ. And I think, Ayman, we're rapidly running out of time. I mean, Ayman, is that something that Al Nadi are measuring as well?
Yes, indeed, we do. We measure we call it the online to offline traffic. So we noticed that customers start browsing online, checking the products, and then coming to the stores, or here in Saudi, they might send their drivers to pick it up from the store. So we measure that because we have the loyalty program. So we capture the loyalty information in the website, and then when they come to the brick and mortar store, we tag the transactions, so we know the contribution of online to offline. And we see, of course, some increased footfall from that. However, it's not huge because we offer, as I explained earlier, 2 hours delivery service. So many people would rather use the home delivery rather than the click and collect.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ayman. So, look, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning. We're running very close to the end of the time that we had booked. I'll pass back to Retail Me for closing questions and comments. Thank you very much again, gentlemen.
Thanks, Peter.
Really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Peter. And yes, definitely a very interesting session. We were tuned in all throughout, and it was super engaging. Just a quick shout out to all of the attendees who've asked us questions. We have a lot of questions pouring in. Unfortunately, time doesn't permit us to go through all of them, but we will be answering and getting back to you on a lot of them. And I see the Oracle team have answered a few questions that were directed to them already in the live chat. Quick shout out to Dharmendra for the question, Umesh for your questions. Thank you for sending us those very insightful questions, which has helped enrich this session. Once again, thanks to all of the panelists who've joined us, Ayman, Philip, Pete, and Gary. Thanks so much for all of those presentations, for the case study, and of course, for this very enriching panel discussion. It was an absolute pleasure listening to all of you speak about what your organizations are doing in this entire omni-channel profitability journey. And I'd also like to thank all the attendees who have tuned in once again for our virtual panel discussion here at Retail ME. And special thanks to our sponsors, of course, Oracle, without whom this session would not have been possible today. There is going to be a survey that will be played at the end of this session. We urge you to participate in it just so we can make our conversations, our discussions, our panel discussions just that much more engaging in the future. Like I mentioned earlier, embracing the UAE's 1 Billion Trees initiative, attendees at this webinar will be adopting a tree, connecting with the farmer, and tracking the carbon negative impact of the tree. So you will also receive a certificate of appreciation for having done your part in promoting sustainability. So congratulations to everybody who've joined us here as attendees, as panelists, and thank you once again for joining us for our virtual roundtable. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.